No, I was going to say fuck corporate America and fuck settlements.
Yeah, I thought about actually that being the title. I know you had sent a different title suggestion, um, but the one that kept coming to mind was "fuck fucking corporations."
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
So, just to clarify, since we're jumping into expletives so quick, um, as we record, Fox News and Dominion Voting Systems have agreed to settle outside of court before going to trial. Or I guess technically they settled in court, but before the trial started. And it's somewhere around half of what Dominion was suing for. It was like 775 million.
I think it's 787 500,000.
Yeah. Uh,
So a little over three-quarters of a billion.
and I don't know any other details as far as anything that Fox specifically has to do. I don't think they have to do anything other than just acknowledge that what we've already known is that some of the information that they continue to broadcast was false. And I mean, part of me certainly is happy that the truth is out there, but this feels really, really wrong. And I do get that uh, they're I mean, I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase it. So there's a difference between what you can prove and win within the confines of the legal system versus what you can prove and gain majority opinion on in the court of public opinion. So I understand that both sides could go into this feeling like it's a 50-50 shot. And so a settlement does benefit Dominion quite a bit in that regard. But the part that I have so much trouble with is that it's yet another instance of a large company getting a monetary punitive judgment and nothing really coming of it for any level of accountability. I mean, the accountability is the payment, basically, and
Yeah,
that's
it's
just
not
not
it's
enough.
right. It, I think it always feels shitty when corporations do corporate stuff. It's, like not so long ago in a less uh I feel like I don't want to say less important case, but maybe not so uh, I don't know. I don't know. It's not even. There's no point in comparing them. But when Apple and why am I blanking on the
Epic.
Epic? Thank you. When they did they did corporate corporate stuff like corporation to corporation legal shit, and it's always feels like gross and inhuman, but that makes sense because there are corporations, and at the end of the day, corporations are comprised of people, but they are not individuals, as at some point somebody wanted to make them the same as people. I don't, but yeah, it it never it never goes. I never feel good about corporations doing corporate things.
I do think, at least in the short term, the benefit is that there's been plenty of coverage. And
Yeah.
you could be living pretty much media averse, and you've probably still heard about some level of Fox News lied. And so if you just continue to get your news from Fox News, you're basically acknowledging you don't care about fact. You only care about what fits the narrative you want to hear. And that has been something that has been seemingly apparent, but at this point, I would say if you continue to adhere to Fox News being a proper journalistic source, you're full of shit. And there's no way
I
you
mean,
can refute that argument and
but they will.
have any kind of logic or rationale or
They never do.
anything behind it. Correct. I mean, we've, you and I at least, have recognized this for a while, and I'm sure plenty of other people have as well. But now it at least is irrefutable if you care at all about fact. And if you
They'll refute it.
don't, well, that just means that you don't care about fact.
Right,
That's my
right.
point. At this point, I can 100% write you off if Fox News is your news source. Thank you. Have a great day. Go away, and we're not going to speak again. And it's just much easier to draw that line and not have it muddied after everything else that has gone on with this particular lawsuit.
That's fair.
But in the long term, I don't see where this changes anything.
Yeah, I don't think so either. There's no accountability, and even when they, yeah, there's no accountability there. Just thinking about like over the past 20 years, like I said, corporations aren't people, but they're run by people, and the people who are at the top, who are supposed to be responsible for it, end up walking away from uh, social tragedies with their golden parachutes.
I do think there is hope for some level of oversight to be considered a news agency as a result of this, but I think that hinges on either a Democratic majority in Congress again or enough Republicans saying, you know what, we're tired of this damaging our reputation and our ability to swing votes, and we're going to join on board with some level of regulation. And I don't really have hope for either one. It's one of those things, though, that I could see this being a catalyst to some sort of bipartisan agreement, even if it comes from different uh, motivations.
You know, when it happens, I'll be looking for the pigs in the air. I'm not usually this pessimistic.
I think it's perfectly warranted when we talk about Congress after the past 20 years or so.
Well, this is the X part of the Xenial coming out of me.
Um, On to more interesting news, or maybe not more interesting, because I kind of was surprised by this. Um, it turns out people look at the Supreme Court as not being very uh, trustworthy compared to pretty much every other major institution. And that historically has not been the case. Did you go back and look at the article specifically or no?
I didn't. I have it pulled up though.
The only reason I ask is because the visuals with the charts was actually a really nice touch. Um, so maybe I will include a link to this one in the show notes after all. But the New York Times in their the morning newsletter wrote about it was predominantly Clarence Thomas and his shenanigans. But one of the things that I found really interesting is that in uh, 2002, 50% of adults said they had a lot of confidence in the court. And in their most recent polls, it was only 25% that gave that same answer. So that's a 50% drop in trustworthiness.
That's massive. That's a massive drop. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, I know I sent you a part of a quote out of it, so I'll read that real quick. Um, the Supreme Court is now less trusted than organized religion, organized labor, or public schools. And that just, I mean, I laugh a little bit because I agree with the sentiment at this point, but I couldn't help but laugh at the inclusion of public schools. And for the record, I am a product of public schools. So I feel like I can uh, lash out at them anytime I like. So part of what I couldn't really pinpoint, because it said, 2002 and then in last year's, which would have been 2022. So a 20-year swing. I couldn't pinpoint how much of that was attributable to general rulings or how much of it was attributable to personal behaviors. Um, and of course, that's not going to show up in just in a chart anyway. Like you'd have to look at the sample data and see if they even tried to pinpoint causes for it. But I could see both being drivers of them, the court no longer being viewed as trustworthy. Because on the one hand, you have behaviors such as the overturning of Roe, which is basically just saying, precedent be damned. We're going to rule how we're going to rule, which reduces trustworthiness in a court that has long held that precedent is something to be observed unless you could justifiably prove that precedent should not be observed. And then, two, Clarence Thomas. And we could go into all sorts of things about behavior and accepting gifts and just how big the disparity is there. Um, I just think he's a despicable human being in the first place. And his wife certainly is not someone that I would look to for guidance or anything else ever. And so seeing them being so public and so willing to engage in um, discussions or activism surrounding their views and beliefs easily skews a lack of trust in the court. Uh, I certainly don't care for a number of the justices, but I wouldn't think twice about, let's just say, Chief Justice Roberts and his behaviors just at the mention of his name or mention of any other family member's name, like I would Clarence Thomas or Virginia Thomas.
When Justice Coney Barrett was brought on board, and uh, I was paying attention to some of the rulings that she had, and a lot of them were, like I don't agree with her position on a lot of things. She's a conservative judge, and but I will say that I did see her. I was like, I understand the fairness of the decisions that she's making in certain cases, and it's like I don't really like it, and I think that you could argue a different way, but I, there is some level of honorableness there. Maybe an overstatement, but
But she appears to be attempting to fulfill the duties and responsibilities of the
yes,
position.
yeah, yeah.
Um, and I noticed that as well, especially in a lot of the public remarks with regard to just lines of questioning to when they're determining whether to hear certain cases or not. Um, there's a lot from her and from Roberts that really point to a desire to uphold the rule or the roles and responsibilities that the Supreme Court should uphold. Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with either one of them across the board or even on a majority of topics. But I do think the only justice, but no, I can't say that. There are only a couple of justices that I don't get that feeling from. Um, Thomas, obviously, being one of them, since we've singled him out. The the others, for the most part, I don't feel are attempting to use the court as a vessel for imposing personal beliefs and opinions. Whereas that's the feeling I get from Thomas.
Yeah, yeah, I would mostly agree with that. But I think to even go further into why the court has become relatively untrustworthy, and I really wish these graphs that the New York Times published had a lot more resolution to them, or had links to, or maybe they do have a link to, behind their paywall where you could see these graphs with a higher resolution, because you can see there's a significant drop between starting, or as the early 2000s are starting, it's dropping from a higher than, that's the highest point in the graph. And you can see that it made its, the trustworthiness percentage made its way up to about 40% a couple of times in the last few years. But it's, again, the resolution of these graphs isn't great, so it's hard to tell. Um, but what I was thinking was that one of the problems is that you can see that the conservative, um, the judges that tend to have a conservative viewpoint are not necessarily playing politics, but they are not dumb about the political landscape. So you tend to have these conservative judges, or some conservative justices resigning, um, you know, you know, with a great deal of time for a Republican president to replace them with um, a justice of their choice. Whereas, people love Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but here's an unpopular opinion, and that is she kind of fucked it up for a lot of people. She should have retired she should have retired halfway through Obama's second term. And the fact that she didn't is the reason why Trump was able to appoint three justices, which is that's a significant number of justices to put in the Supreme Court. That's a third of the it's nine, right? Am I mistaken there? All of a sudden, I'm like second guessing myself on how many justices sit on the Supreme Court bench.
There's nine.
Nine, yeah, it's a third. He replaced a third of the bench there, and that's pretty significant. And so I can, on the left, I can say, yeah, these, like, the less conservative, like, I don't want to say liberal, but I want to say the less conservative justices are also somewhat untrustworthy, in the sense that they stay on the bench for fucking ever, and they don't. It's not that they be playing into politics, but they should be somewhat cognizant of, hey, if there is a Democratic president here, and I know that they don't necessarily, like I said, they're not trying to play politics, but it's like you can be somewhat strategic about when you retire.
I will play devil's advocate on that just a little bit, only because I think that's an interesting question. Knowing what we know about how uh, anti Obama Congress was at the time, and they were obviously able to stonewall a number of things from happening, is it potentially a viable explanation that Ruth Bader Ginsburg knew that she could have resigned or retired at that point, and no replacement making their way to the court because of the obstinance of politics at the time? Like, do you? I get that it's easier to say less than a year, up to a year, because of the cycle of when the court hears cases and everything else. So, 2 years, 2.5 years might have been stretching it quite a bit. But do you think it's possible that Congress could have done a similar thing that they did toward the end of Obama's term, and actually prevent, another justice from clearing all hurdles for that prolonged period of time?
This is where it's very easy to be a uh, armchair quarterback and call bullshit for all of this. It's like, um, yeah, one, it is somewhat problematic that Congress is playing politics. Like, it's a big problem. and there's only so much, only so much power any one person or any party could have over the other in a situation like this. But for them to have blocked, I mean, like it's unconscionable that uh, the Republican-led Congress blocked Obama from uh, choosing a justice towards the end of his term, stating that he was an outgoing president. Total bullshit. Because the third justice that Trump appointed occurred with less time than Obama had when there was an opportunity for him to appoint a judge. So they're all a bunch of shitheads. I don't know that was. I mean, that sullies the good name of the shitheads that are out there. But
I mean, we
um,
certainly know that it's egregious in general, but my question was more focused on: do you think they could have extended the time frame long enough that Ruth Bader Ginsburg, thought that her better play was trying to get past the Obama administration?
no, because if she had retired halfway through his second term, unless they were just afraid of like how showing how much power that Republican-led Congress had, and they were just being you know lacking any sort of grit, maybe. But if even if she retired with a reasonable amount of time, a reasonable amount of time to uh, uh, identify, vet, and appoint a new justice, that's when it should have happened. And I get that the concern was that the Republican Congress is going to block it, but I mean, unless she was like trying to live past the Trump uh, administration and make it to the next administration, no, she should have retired earlier.
I mean, then it kind of begs the question if maybe that wasn't the thought, though. Is maybe the thought was that timeline wise, another 4 years was manageable, and it just turned out not to be.
Well, I mean, how old was our RBG when she passed?
I'd have to look it up. I don't know off the top of my head.
All right, here's some real time follow. But the point being is if 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 Congress was going to do the same thing and block um um block Obama from appointing a new justice, you either are going to have a justice that is appointed by a uh, another Democratic president that follows Obama, or it's going to be a president that follows or the it was either going to be Trump or Clinton. So I don't know.
She was 87 when she passed.
87. She'd been on that bench for at least 17 years too long.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
I mean, maybe that's not fair. Maybe that's not fair. Maybe 13 years too long.
Yeah, I mean, I get what you're going for. The thought,
Because she was only on the bench for 17 years.
yeah, the thought really is as you get closer to 80, your your general perception of what time you have remaining should already be clear enough to know what level of succession you have for someone else. And so if you don't take the bench until you're, closer to 80, you should be thinking about what it means to have someone else follow you at the time that you are beginning that stage of your career. Um, it's just a fact of being an over 70 person working. Now, granted, I wouldn't expect someone who is over 70 and gets employed as a Walmart greeter to worry too much about succession or who their successor would be. But I'm pretty sure Supreme Court justice ranks way above
We're
court
talking
greeter.
two ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, but for sure. And I don't think you get to the point where you are appointed to the Supreme Court without at least understanding how significant that tenure can be and what dynamics make it more or less um, uh, strenuous isn't the word that I'm thinking of. More or less explosive or dynamically um, imperiled with regard to public discourse that could be for the long term. And none of those are the right words. I just couldn't think of the other one that I was thinking of. So I used other fill-in words that at least kind of conveyed the meaning.
So here's the thing that just like burns me up. So Scalia was succeeded by Gorsuch, and his term ended when he passed away in February of 2016, and that is when Congress was like, what was who was the Speaker of the House at the time? Was it resting Mitch McConnell? I think
I
it was
think
Mitch
so.
McConnell. Yeah,
You said
and
2016?
yeah, it was 2016.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was McConnell.
He said in February of 2016 that there was not enough time. Like President Obama didn't have enough time to he was on his way out. He wasn't going to be there was going to be an election that year, and that the incoming president should be choosing should be filling that position, and that's where they blocked his attempt to fill that vacant seat. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg fucking died in September of 2020. That's 7 months less time, and they're like, oh yeah, let's let Trump appoint Coney Barrett to the bench. It's it angers me. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.